Welcome to Growth Sparks, the podcast for health and wellness practitioners and entrepreneurs. Here we dive into founder stories, strategies, and innovations that shape the health and wellness industry. I'm your host, Riza Javellana, and I'm happy to be joined today by Rick Beyer of Engage Wellness. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
It's great to have you. What brought you to Engage Wellness? Tell us the story.
So I've spent most of my career having conversations with individual clients and corporate clients about the what ifs in life. What if you pass
Mhm.
away too soon? What if you live too long? What if you get hurt along the way? And what if that illness or injury is going to cause additional expenses for you and your family?
Mm.
Those are defensive strategies that, fortunately or unfortunately, people do need to plan for. However, after doing that at the highest level for north of 2 decades, I was approached by an existing client who had developed a company that adopted part of the tax statute that was originally in the Affordable Care Act that didn't focus on the exchange of health insurance and defensive strategies, but focused on the wellness side of strategies. So after multiple conversations, I saw a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to scale to have a much more in-depth, thoughtful, and purposeful conversation about wellness in the workplace.
I love that. Having spent a good 20 plus years in the corporate world, it was towards the end, maybe through the pandemic period, that companies emphasized wellness. But before that, it was really an afterthought. It was all about the benefits, the time that you get sick or when you need it, not necessarily wellness in a general and preventative sense. So tell us more about what makes this unique.
So to give a preamble, and this isn't a statement other than a statement of fact, there's significant profits to be made in sickness care, be it the healthcare system, the pharmaceutical system, and all of the tentacles along the way. So therefore, wellness isn't exactly popular because it doesn't generate revenue. However, if we look at how we spend our time with our families in the institutions we work in, at schools, if we're school teachers, or in corporate America, we spend about 2/3 of our waking hours, our best productive hours, with colleagues and employers that profess their values and their missions. And therefore, I feel like those employers have an obligation to provide and make aware of wellness benefits that exist in the workplace, but are also tax efficient. So part of this ACA here in the United States was, yes, there was going to be healthcare for all. But in the fine print was also an emphasis on wellness, which is if we can get out ahead of the curve, if we can really create an awareness both corporately and individually on taking care of oneself, doing our annual exams, seeing a dentist, if we're having trouble, having someone that we can call, and then having other types of programs that encourage those types of behaviors, employers found that they're much more efficient, they're much more profitable, and their attraction power for the highest level employees is much more favorable because it's not just a mission or vision statement, but it's a statement of values based on the plans that they're putting in place.
Can you tell me about how you've made a significant impact, a moment that you can be really proud of as how this has made an impact to a business or to a person?
So, in this robust economy where there's questionable data whether job markets are contracting or expanding, the reality is for most business owners is that they want to keep the best people in the seats and the roles that they're in and allow them an opportunity for growth. To unfortunately naturally select and encourage people to maybe transition. But part of that transition is attraction power. So can you continue to attract the best talent in their industries? And in our particular case, though we're not running the company, some of the softer benefits are very relevant to what people use as selection criteria when looking at an opportunity or a career role within a company. One is compensation. Two is generally benefits. Three is the corporate culture. And what most people are either vetting consciously or unconsciously is there alignment in character and mission with that company between all three of those aspects? Do they value the person's work? Do they give them a pathway to grow? Are they willing to support them and their families? And are they willing to encourage them to be better than they are today? So I've seen this happen from blue collar companies. When I say blue collar, HVAC companies, cleaning companies, dry cleaning companies, other types of manual trade companies, all the way up into the attorney, doctor, white collar professional, Wall Street professions. And with the adoption of wellness and the awareness that continues to occur in wellness, these are not philosophies that are politically charged or have empirical data. It just simply says is that we recognize that if people focus on any one thing, whether it's weight management, whether it's vacation time, whether it's quality time with their family, not just quantity time, or if it's on their own personal wellness, just the emphasis and the attention to that particular topic generally creates a much higher adoption ratio.
And the benefits that Engage Wellness offers is varied, right? It's a whole span from
It is. It's a suite of benefits that are available that the
Mhm.
employee gets to select. Now,
Mhm.
the benefit that we have at engagewellness.org is, unlike other wellness companies, we provide a full IRS audited plan document. We're responsible for enrollment, audit, monitoring, maintenance, and billing. This is designed to complement both fully insured and self-insured plans and not replace them. However,
Okay.
what you'll find is because of some of the services that are included under the IRS statutes that include wellness benefits, i.e., Section 125 and about 8 other ACR statutes, what you'll find is over time is there'll be less pressure put on the health insurance component of preventative services, i.e., annual wellness, telemed, mental health, discounted vision and dental, and other affiliated services, and we'll push that onto wellness. The goal, and again, it's hard because this is relatively new. When I say new, 401ks have only been around for 30 years. Wellness has only been around really for 8. There's not enough data to support that focus on wellness is ultimately going to buy down the health insurance premiums that an employer would pay, both on the self-insurance side and the fully insured side. Now, we're seeing glimpses of that on the private funded side or the employer paid portion of the health insurance, but we don't have enough empirical data to prove that by them focusing on wellness, it's actually reducing the claims rate directly, and therefore should, in theory, if all things were equal, should either compress premiums or at least keep them relatively static. Because for most employers, outside of raw payroll alone, benefits is the second largest line item on their profit and loss statement. And if you can help them save some of what they would consider fixed and variable costs, it allows them to expand. It allows them to hire. It allows them to be more thoughtful and intentional about the capital that they have. These are all net benefits that can be directly tied back to adopting a true wellness plan within an employer base. And this can range from 2 people up to 20,000 people. There is no sweet spot for this.
Yeah. Having said that, who is your ideal business customer?
Honestly, there's no discrimination as to who would be the best prospects. What we have
Mhm.
found through
Mhm.
deployment, because of the newness and because of how the accounting works for these wellness benefits, so there's some significant payroll savings for the employer by adopting these plans. And there's actually
Mhm.
some actual net savings to the employee by having these plans available and enrolling in these plans,
Hmm.
what we have found is the largest employers have many different layers of compliance, oversight, accounting, legal, director of human capital, HR, all that fun stuff that
Hmm.
makes sometimes the adoption, and because of the newness, some level of skepticism, challenging when it comes to deployment. Some of the other largest health insurance brokers pretend that they're providing these benefits for employers as well too. But what they're really doing is just setting aside a certain amount of reserve requirement to offset those claims rates for those fully insured or self-insured plans. Therefore, the perfect size group for easy deployment, and when I say easy, ease of access, ease of enrollment, ease of billing, are those 10 to 150, 200 person groups. Okay. Which
Yep.
frankly, I don't have the stat in front of me, but I would feel confident in saying 95% of all employers in the United States of America fall into that category. Okay. And
Yeah.
regardless of whether they have sophisticated accounting systems or HR folks, or they simply just want to be able to provide additional soft benefits that frankly nets them zero out of pocket, this becomes a terrific resource for them. There's full adoption with payroll systems, some of the largest you can think of, ADP, Paychex, Velocity. They're all wonderful adopters because they already have this preloaded in their system that once you say, yes, we're putting a wellness plan in place, click, 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 enrollment goes. 30 days later, they're already not only recognizing the benefits of having a wellness program, but more importantly, are recognizing the tax benefits to the employer themselves and the employee.
Very interesting. What's holding people back from adopting this? Is it just lower awareness, or is it the complexity of putting this into the system? What's holding mid-sized businesses from taking this on?
I really think it does come down to awareness.
Mm.
Um, I always use the example. So, having spent over 2 decades in the financial services and financial planning space, talking about the defensive questions that I referenced earlier in our conversation, there was a period of time where doing what are called Roth IRA conversions were not popular. They thought they were going to be sunsetted in a very short amount of time, or you had to have a specific income. And therefore, there was a lot of skepticism around whether that policy would stay in force. And what we found was the values are in alignment between the federal government and the tax benefits they're willing to provide through wellness benefits. And the same applied to conversions of pre-tax retirement assets to post-tax retirement assets. None of us have to pull any punches to recognize that we're in a severe tax deficit as a nation. So anything that's going to generate additional tax revenue and take some pressure off of Medicare, Medicaid, and some of the other federal programs should be easily adoptable. It's just new. So it
Mm.
really comes down to awareness and things like we're doing right now to have a conversation about this so that someone is
Yeah.
curious enough to lean in to see how this could be deployed and implemented in their business is the way
Yeah.
that we can get the word out. We could
Yeah.
bang text messages all day long, robocalls. It's not going to have the same meaningful impact. So we really have to go to those people that have influence over the decisions. CPAs, attorneys, decision makers, CFOs, individuals that are willing to be not only, and I don't want to use the word creative because this isn't really creative. I mean, it was passed into law by the Supreme Court not too long ago. So this is now law to just simply acknowledge that something new exists and that there's no pride or ego in simply saying, I'm not really sure about all this, but let's dive deeper into it. Because I think the net benefits of all the things I discussed earlier in our conversation for the employees, the awareness, the values alignment, those are easy boxes to check. It's just the mechanical aspects to make sure that it's there on the back end because there is some tax ramifications here and people are cautious when it comes to tax.
Yeah. Yeah, it changes a system that they're probably used to, right? Like accounting
Right.
principles, the way the
Yeah.
books are done, it's something new and different, and that could be very intimidating for a lot of smaller, medium-sized businesses.
Yeah. And they don't, frankly, have the infrastructure. And sometimes it's just the knowledge and the awareness. They've got enough stuff on their plate already
Yes.
just running the business and doing all the things we talked about, keeping the right people in seats and attracting new people and finding new customers and all that fun stuff. But For the groups that we've had the privilege to implement these types of benefits with, and now at engagewellness.org, it's been over 20,000 employees. So this isn't something that we've got a couple of case studies. We literally have thousands and thousands of case studies. Some of the feedback that we're getting, not just from the employers, but the employees, has been significant because these benefits also apply to family members as well. So they're not just
Yes.
exclusive of the employee themselves. And having access to some of these services, telemed and some things like that, veterinarian care, are relevant. What we've seen the highest utilization come from is the mental health part. It's a part that
Mhm.
I'm very passionate about because oftentimes it has a stigma, it's disguised, it's not discussed, and people want to have both a confidential and a option to be able to speak to someone about anything. And I
Yeah.
think that outside of the actual wellness or the health part, i.e., cholesterol and vision and dental and all that fun stuff, I think that's the part where we can make the most amount of gains as a society to continue to
Yes.
encourage people to have a conversation relative to that. And I think a lot of things over time will continue to improve for us as a society if we continue to embrace that process. And we've seen it. There's an 11% adoption ratio in mental health across those 20,000. That means people are using it. That's it. The data doesn't lie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we want to encourage that as well too.
And ultimately, what you're offering as a benefit to the employees is so needed these days.
It's unlimited access,
Yeah.
unlimited access. They could call every day if they
Yeah.
needed to.
Yeah.
To have access both to maintain their integrity as human beings, but also maintain their confidentiality that doesn't involve their employer or maybe even their spouse or their significant other, or a place where a child could call. I think that's so relevant in today's age. And sometimes those are bundled into health insurance plans. They're just not overly publicized because there's a lot of components to health insurance, right? Risk mitigation, HMOs, PEOs. I mean, we can go on and on and on. There's a lot of components to
Yeah.
health insurance. And unfortunately, this ends up in the fine print.
Yeah.
Our job is to elevate that conversation because if we're already having those basic conversations in financial planning that says, again, if you die too soon, live too long, become disabled, or should need extended care, or you feel like you're going to run out of money, we can solve for that mathematically. This should just be a component of that because longevity is going to certainly be on our side. We've seen life expectancy in my short career, and I call it 2.5 decades or so, literally rise almost 5.5 years. People are
Yeah.
living longer, unhealthier, and unfortunately, it's creating a ton of pressure both on the healthcare systems, the insurance companies, and then, us as a whole in Medicare and Medicaid. So this is a way to get out in front of that generation from a generational standpoint.
Absolutely. It's certainly win-win. A win for the employers who can offer more benefits, really valuable benefits to their employees, and for the employees to have more on their side for healthier lifespans, help that they may not even know they need at this point, but will need at some point, and just for preventative efforts that they can do for themselves to have healthier lifespan, as you spoke of. It certainly is so needed in our society today. When you think about your priorities for the next 6 months, what are you focusing on?
Awareness is always going to be key. Two is scale, identifying professionals that have a passion for having this conversation, the fortitude to do that. And because I was raised, quote unquote, in this type of business where if you don't make an outbound call, there's going to be almost zero likelihood of someone calling in. And I pray that podcasts like this and some of the other awareness we're doing will actually encourage people to be like, hey, I want to go on to engagewellness.org and learn more about what they're talking about. And whether it's the right fit or not, there's no obligation for them. It's just a curiosity that we want to create. The part as a business owner continuing to scale is how broad can this get? And with the number of businesses that are out there and the amount of opportunity that exists, I think it's almost limitless. Where will there be a point of 100% saturation? Absolutely not. But I look at
Yeah.
other business models and other companies that have done very well, that have introduced a new concept or an idea, or even some of these short-term companies, PPP and ERC. And that's not, again, Whether you liked them or didn't like them or thought they did good things or didn't do good things, it's irrelevant. But what they found was is they could very quickly penetrate the market and in certain cases had significant impacts in a positive way to businesses. Now, there's plenty of other stories where maybe that didn't work. Okay. However, it's our job to create awareness. And the way we can do that is one, affect our local communities, which is have conversations with folks on the soccer field, the baseball field, at school, in your place of worship, if that's important to you. Those are great places to start because there's already a love and respect and a similar value system. The key then is expanding upon that with a set of professionals that can have a very basic conversation. This isn't a sophisticated product. This isn't a sophisticated business model. It could be replicated. So for all those that are entrepreneurs out there that want to learn this business model, call me. Let's intern for 6 months and then you go scale it twice the size that we're doing it right now. I encourage that. That's entrepreneurism at its very best. In the meantime, our job is really scaling and outreach. How many people can we really interact with? And the nice part about this is unlike other types of qualified employee benefits plans, i.e. retirement plans or health care plans, there's not an open enrollment window. You can hit the ground running literally next month with this. So the only knockout question is, if an employer is not providing health insurance, they're excluded from this plan. So if they're not, that doesn't mean someone is enrolled, but if they're not providing health insurance on a group basis for their employees, not a reimbursement, but true health insurance, regardless of their adoption ratio or who's involved, that's a knockout question. Now, the second part of our business is we can help them find perhaps a group plan that would work for them that is one, affordable, two is maybe has a decent size adoption for those populations that are desiring that, to provide the opportunity to include wellness in their plan. Because again, it doesn't have to have 100% adoption. This is literally a choice employers can make. Now, those that have adopted wellness, once they have a health insurance plan, like auto enrollment for retirement contributions and things of that nature, they can auto enroll the second people start. So once they're up and running, they're off and running. But until then, we have some white glove service that really helps employers, especially for those sizes that I talked about, those 10s to 150s, 200 employees, to help them get up and running and not make this another thing that they have to monitor, maintain, and do every single month. We'll handle the payroll part of it. We'll handle the accounting part of it. We'll handle the adoption and the plan documents. We want to make this as easy as possible for employers to be able to do some things like this and then take that off their plate.
Yeah, because I guess that's key. So the awareness of it and then making sure that you're helping take away all the friction that's involved in adopting this new process, new benefits for the employee. So that's really exciting. And I can tell the passion that you have for this, Rick. Obviously, the overarching benefit of all this is improvement for the welfare and lives of people. I sense the deep passion that you have. Really great. When you think about 3 to 5 years from now, what are the trends that you see in this industry? Are benefits, packages going to continue to evolve? In what way?
I think it's a couple fold, and I appreciate the question. One is, I think there's going to be a high adoption ratio, and I think at the end of the day, like most businesses, you're going to have about 6, 7, 8 providers that own 80% of the market, the old 80-20 concept. Where I think the biggest opportunity is to have additional conversation post wellness, which is financial health.
Mm.
Again, if you look at sick time, PTO time, and other interruptions to normal business activities, outside of health, the number 2 reason is financial. If you lose an employee to a telephone call for 3 hours working with their credit card company to try to figure out how they can make a minimum payment, you lost 3 hours of productivity.
Yeah.
If someone loses a spouse or a loved one or a parent, yes, they get bereavement, but there's other financial considerations that have to occur when those things do happen. And unfortunately, you do lose productivity. And sometimes you simply just lose the employee because their life situation has changed. I think our biggest opportunity is to couple wellness with financial health and having a real conversation that says, now that we've addressed you living well and long? Should life throw you a curveball, do you have the right safeguards in place that maybe exceed what your employer can provide to make sure that your family can stay in the home, your kids can stay in the schools that they choose, that you can be buried with dignity, or that you can live a long life, not poor and not wealthy, but well off?
Mhm.
That is our biggest opportunity to penetrate the industry post wealth. And we can
Yeah,
do that through another company we own, which is called One Pacific. And I can elaborate that at a later time, but it's what we do outside of this as well, too, is to couple the two together, because I think in harmony, that's the biggest opportunity for employers. Because again, it takes pressure off of the employer and gives the employee resources. It also gives the business owner resources that says, hey, if Mary, who's running payroll, doesn't show up tomorrow because she passed away, who's going to run payroll? I don't know. Mary always did it. Well, we have to figure that out, because you're going to have 20, 50, 100, 150 people that are looking for a check on Friday that needs to make sure that that still happens. Some of these honest conversations, I think, are really relevant, and no one is immune to a sudden catastrophe that could occur. What they can do is be proactive, be thoughtful, and be preventative, so that if or when it occurs, they're prepared. And if none of that bad stuff happens, then someone gets the beautiful cake and the song. And I always use the Office Space case scenario where they give him the cake and the guy didn't receive a piece, but they're saying, hey, good luck. Your retirement occurred. You're 62 or you're 60 or you're 58 or you're 71. It doesn't matter. You have that permission to go off into the sunset, to know that those things have been addressed. So I know that's a broad topic. And again, at a later time, we could have another conversation about that. But I think coupling the two between wellness and financial health is going to be the biggest opportunity here over the next decade or two for the industry.
makes a ton of sense. I've learned a lot from this short conversation that we've had, but there's so much more to learn. So, Rick, where can people go to learn more about what you do and how this can benefit them?
So twofold, and thank you. One is go out to engagewellness.org. Fill out our contact sheet. It's literally three fields. Who are you? Where do you live? What's your telephone number? And we will promise to contact you. Two is, if you were curious about the second part of that conversation, go to onepacificfs.com. That's going to be the best source to be able to find an advisor that can help have that conversation. And it's ultimately our job as leaders of this organization to couple the two together, to blend that so that you feel like you have a seamless transition. So those are the two places. Reach out to us online. We're here to help. If you haven't seen anything in the last 20 minutes, I pray that you can see our heart and our passion through the work that we do. We're serious about this work. This has been our career defining moments. It's how we lead our lives, how we lead our faith. And we just get the privilege to do this as our day job every single day. So I appreciate the time.
Appreciate you and sharing your story and sharing what engagewellness.org is all about. It's good for the people, it's good for businesses. So thank you for sharing your mission with such heart. All the best
Thank
and
you.
thank you.
Have an amazing day.